Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Velero community meeting / open discussion. Super happy to have you all here. This is a new year. It's a new decade. It's now 2020, so we need to learn to write that date down in our notebooks and our meeting notes and everything, which I'll share in a minute here. So, of course, the team has mostly been out of office. A lot of us have had vacation time throughout the holidays here. So we want to make sure that everyone is up to speed with what's happening with the project. So let's head over to the meeting notes, and I'll share them here so everyone can see them as well. All right. So today is January 7th, 2020. And for status updates, first up, we have Carlicia.
Yeah, I'm gonna go super quick. Just I finished, well, I still have to go through the issues on GitHub. I haven't finished doing that yet. And I'm community support, and I do have to finish that design doc. I'm gonna work on that today.
And that's the design doc that we talked about before the break that we wanted to have a separate meeting about, right? Community meeting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's maybe make the next meeting.
Yeah. If that works, then we'll do that. If you want to postpone it a little, that's perfectly fine as well. Just let me know, and we'll message it out to make sure that people are on it.
No, next week for sure.
Okay, let's go next week then. Awesome. So we have a theme for next week. Fun. All right, Steve.
Yeah, obviously just catching up from vacation. I spent a good chunk of yesterday doing that. I took another look at the PR that we have from some folks at IBM to add multi-arch support to our Docker manifests, as well as adding PowerPC to the builds there. So I think that's good to go. It looked good to me as of the end of last year. I took one fresh look at it yesterday, and I think it's okay. So I tagged Nolan on it. He may have looked at it already today. I think I saw a notification on it, but I think we should be good to get that merged pretty soon. So that'll be cool. And then we can look and see if we can have any community members who are interested in updating that to add ARM support for our Docker images as well. Because I know some folks have been interested in that. And now that we have the groundwork for that, it should be relatively easy to add another arch. I also started looking at upgrading to the 1.17 Kubernetes dependencies. So I was looking at some of the work Ashish had done on migrating to Go modules, and then also just looking at bumping those dependencies. And it looks like there are some breaking changes in the upstream libraries around essentially printing tables of objects on the command line. So this would be like our Velero backup get command that prints out backups as well as other things. So I think there's some refactoring that we're going to need to do in our code to be able to upgrade to 1.17. So I'm kind of playing around with that and seeing if I can get that working. I think ideally we can actually entirely drop our dependency on the main Kubernetes repo, because right now we depend on kates.io/Kubernetes for some of this code, but we're only using it for one piece of functionality. So I'm going to try and drop that dependency, which will just simplify things a little bit. And then, yeah, I'm kind of ready to start helping out on CSI stuff and, participating in any of the discussions on the install config UX. So I know everyone's sort of ramping back up after the new year. So just waiting to pitch in once folks are ready to proceed with that. And I think that's all for me.
So just a question regarding the Kubernetes dependencies there. You said it's only one function that uses those dependencies?
So yeah, so we depend on the Kubernetes repo proper. specifically to use some code around printing tables of objects, like for in a command line context. So like for our Velero backup get, Velero restore get commands. But that's the only reason that we depend on the proper Kubernetes repo. There's been some refactoring upstream that has moved some of that functionality into a separate repo called CLI runtime. So we're actually going to need to add the CLI runtime dependency, but I think we can fairly easily drop the dependency on the remaining code that's in the Kubernetes repo. So.
And with the move to Go modules upstream, basically you can't use the Kubernetes repo as a Go dependency anymore.
Yeah, that was kind of part of it. Was it seemed like we would run into issues if we maintain that dependency. So I can connect more with Ashish because I know he was looking at the Go module stuff.
Yeah, I have some updates on that, and kind of ending my, or I'm not sure how to proceed. I'm at a dead end, so maybe we can sync up and like come up with a way to recover from that.
Yeah, maybe you and I can touch base after this call. I know we have some time later today, so we can touch base and kind of figure out where to go.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. All right, that's all from me.
Awesome. Any other questions for Steve? All right, Nolan.
I don't think I'll go through all this. I think I got way more detailed than other folks. Part of this was just reminding myself of what I was working on before the break. So like everyone else, I was doing the review backlog. But here, just like 5 minutes before the meeting, the data protection working group was formalized. So this got in to the community repo. So congratulations, Jing. So this is merged, and then we'll move forward with this. So we as a Velero team will be engaged. I'll be attending these, and I don't think I have a whole lot more to say on it besides it's created officially now, and then we will be engaged here. So then for the rest of my update, let's see. Like Steve said, we need to go over the CSI plan, make sure we're rolling on that. We should be, I think we're in a good place for the plan. There may be 1 or 2 issues that, we run into, hey, we need to do this first or something like that. But I think we're pretty well set for the high level plan. Also, as Steve said, I haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet, but I had reviewed the multi-arch Docker manifest PR. I'm going to take one more look at it, but that's mostly going to be a quick glance just to make sure I remember what it was, and then it'll get merged. Need to pick up the move from Travis CI to GitHub Actions. The thing that's remaining there is container building. So GitHub Actions is running on every PR now, but it is not building master on master commits. It's not building containers, and it's not building releases. That's still happening on Travis. And one of the last things that came in before the break was from one of our Kubernetes architects, and also here at VMware, and also one of our community members. So we were seeing some strange issues with CRDs on restores on 116. And unfortunately, I didn't get a whole lot of information on this before our break, so I need to pick this back up and see what's going on. It's something to do with API versioning, I think. But that's kind of a rundown of where I'm at.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions for Nolan? All right, moving over to Ashish.
Mute. So I started picking up on the execution hooks from Adnan. We had a clean handoff before he left. I started making some progress over the break on the execution hooks. And I have some questions which I will go over with Shing in either in the CGAPS meetings or like offline, sync up with her and get those clarified and make more progress on that front. I spoke with Shing yesterday about the application snapshot and how we want to orchestrate execution hooks using the application snapshot and stuff. I have some, Shing had some questions and I have to figure out answers for that. So that's something that I'm going to be doing today. So those were the two ongoing action or things that I've been working on. An update on the Go module stuff. So I was able to switch over to Go modules and get things to build as is. But the point where I ran into issues was with the generated code, especially with the client set gen. So that's where I kind of ran into a wall. We'll probably sync up with Steve and come up with ideas to how to get past it. And I spoke with Steve yesterday over chat. We'll probably talk a little more about that on how to kind of um, how I can kind of get more involved for the 1.3 release and help out Nolan with the CSI stuff. So that's pretty much what's going on. The break kind of gave me a chance to kind of get caught up and become truly more productive.
Awesome. That sounds great. Any questions for Ashish? Right. I have one short discussion topic, but I'll leave that to after Carlicia here. So Carlicia.
Yeah, we've been getting some things on this issue, which is a request to support custom CA bundles, certificates. And I figure I'll bring this up, and even if it's to say we're postponing this for a while, I think we should give them an answer. Or we're going to look into it soon.
Yeah, this is an old issue dating back to 2018.
Carlicia, can you explain a little bit what the use case will be here for us who are not familiar with this issue?
I haven't read this issue in a while, but let me see if I remember correctly. So when some people who install a Velero and they have, on a cluster on-prem, they want to be able to just have a self-signed certificate and for authentication, so they don't have to deal with the real certificate.
Yeah, this is
if I'm reading this correct. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, like one of the typical use cases that I've seen that why we're interested in supporting this is, so as Carlicia mentioned, an on-prem cluster is a great example for like the OpenShift case. Everything has self-signed certs. So if you install like a Minio instance or a Nuba instance, they're going to have their own CA bundle that you actually want to connect to from Velero itself for the S3 endpoint. So we just need some way in the backup storage location to specify where the CA bundle is, whether it's in a secret or something, and then Velero can consume that. That's kind of how we're envisioning how this would be used on our side.
So the con is that it would open up Velero. It would open a channel for Velero to be less secure, and people could mess up or exploit that. But then the question is, are we in the business of locking everything down? I mean, shouldn't the users be responsible for their security? And we just need to document it really well. And there is an example, I don't know, I think it's Kubernetes itself that does accept self-signed certs. So we were saying, well, then so should we?
Right.
I mean,
I think there are two questions.
Well, we had merged one approach. So there was PR 1793, where we basically just turned off certificate validation. And there's the alternative. So there's that. You can do that and just not check certificates at all. So there's not even like man-in-the-middle attacks. You just don't look. And then there's the option of importing certificate bundles so that you can say, before you do any communication, you tell Velero and your servers, hey, these are the certificates you're all using. Communicate with these; they're trusted. That's a better option, but it's a little bit more complicated to do, which I think is what Andy had mentioned in this earlier, because we had merged the turn it all off thing, and then Andy raised a hand and said, hey, I would much prefer you implement the certificate import version, but that one's going to take more time. But I think because of I think Adnod had mentioned, hey, kubectl lets you just turn off certificate checks. So why are we enforcing certificate checks on our storage or our object storage? So we re-merged it, or we re-implemented it. So I guess. Yeah, that's all I had.
So from my perspective, turning it off, I don't think it's an option, right? So, we're dealing with data that's going to go and possibly become the only available restore points should something happen. So if someone wants to go through the trouble of basically enabling a high threshold of security using encryption and putting the data either on-prem, off-prem, and they want to use certificates for that matter, we should be able to support them. So the second option you mentioned, Nolan, is a lot more attractive, like being able to import the certificate into Velero and being able to trust it and say, this is what we're going to use for the communication. Now, my question is, what do we do today? So I know here this ticket says we don't support custom CA bundles. Do we support any encryption today? Like if someone wants to use S3 bucket for basically storing their data, what kind of SSL are we using there?
We're basically using whatever the
AWS SDK offers.
Yeah.
Okay,
AWS,
so we trust their certificate in that case.
Yes. Yeah. But if you're using Minio or Nuba or the on-prem stuff, then that's where it gets stickier.
Got it.
I think the problem is we are using AWS SDK to talk to Minio.
So let me ask you a different question. If the customer that's using Minio goes to Let's Encrypt and gets a certificate that's no longer self-signed and imports it into Minio and then tries to use Velero against Minio using that cert, will it work?
No idea.
I am not familiar with how the AWS SDK is set up or can it be set up to use or can you provide certificates for it to use? I don't think so.
Jonas just shook his head, but I don't think you're right in saying no, Jonas, because Let's Encrypt certificates are in default certificate chains, CA bundles.
Yeah,
so
they are. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So that's why I'm a little surprised that we actually have an issue saying that this doesn't work.
Yeah. So that's basically what I was gonna say next. Is can we have someone try this out? Because I don't want to go do work to accept self-signed certs. If it's anyone can just go to Let's Encrypt, get the certificates that's in a chain. It will be valid. It will work for our scenarios, and then we can just document it and tell them this is what you should do.
There
rather than actually.
Sorry, there are a ton of use cases where Let's Encrypt won't work though. When you have
if you can't get to the internet.
Yeah, if you can't get to the internet, if the internet can't get to you, if Let's Encrypt can't get to you, you can't prove your identity. I know Contour supports this. It's a pretty common use case for isolated clusters, and I don't really see it as a security issue. If this is about so self-signed versus not is about identity. It doesn't change how good the encryption or authorization or authentication is. It's just as good. It's just you can't prove someone is who they say they are when it's self-signed. So if the only and I don't see that really as
yeah, I agree with what Tim is saying there, and I wanted to dial back to we're talking about the AWS SDK. I know I'm like 99.9% sure that the Go SDK supports specifying a custom CA model. So when I saw this issue, I initially thought that the change wouldn't actually be too bad. It would we just need some data flow from the BSL to get down to the SDK. I think it might be as easy as that.
Because so Dylan, you're talking about if I'm understanding you, basically the AWS SDK will flow down to the Go SSL libraries.
Well, I was saying more generically that the AWS SDK written in Go, so the Go AWS SDK itself allows for custom CA bundles, which is what Velero is using under the hood, right? So it should just be as simple as the BSL can pass a CA bundle down to the SDK.
Okay, so you're not saying necessarily that it goes like down to the Go. You're not necessarily saying that the AWS SDK uses the Go's standard library SSL stuff, but that the AWS SDK supports custom. Okay, I haven't done this research. I may have looked into this a while ago, but the issue's kind of old, and I haven't reviewed it in a little while.
So it sounds like we have an agreement that we should do this. Do I at least have that clarity? Okay. So now it's a question of when do we fit this in our backlog?
From my perspective, if we have things that are in flight right now, and after they're done, if anybody has the ability and the time to pick this up next, they could.
Yeah, I might be able to find an engineer on our team that might be able to go start working on this because we already have for our next release, our way of solving this was to just turn it off, right? So we had to actually make some changes to Rustic to just skip so we're actually copying PV data into the S3 endpoint. We had to make some changes to Rustic to get it to skip the SSL verification. So we kind of have just started on that path like 2 weeks ago. Maybe I can talk to someone about looking into this issue because they're already touching the AWS SDK with the changes they're making for Rustic. So I can talk to someone and maybe leave a note on the issue if that's something that we are interested in picking up sooner rather than later. But I know it's definitely a use case that we are interested in tackling like soon, within the next couple months.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I just pasted in chat. I just did a quick Google search. It looks like generically AWS SDKs have the AWS CA bundle and environment variable to point at a different CA bundle. So yes, the AWS SDK allows for overriding it.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, I will, let me circle back with my team and I can leave a comment on the issue. I think I might be able to find someone to work on this sooner rather than later.
Much appreciated, thank you.
All right. Any other comments on this particular discussion topic? All right. Quick one from me. I'll share the share my screen again so you can see it. So quick one from me. I've been playing around with different CMS systems for a bunch of other sites that I manage outside of work. And I was wondering if there is any interest to have something like that for Velero.io, especially for the blogs and docs, not for the main site and layouts and CSS and all of that, but for actual content writing. I know right now we're doing everything in a normal workflow that we do. I was just wondering if it would be interesting, if you would be interested in me diving into this a little bit.
Can you tell us a little about pros and cons?
Yeah.
Can
so
people review comments?
So the stuff that I've looked at right now, the main drawback that I see is that you're essentially committing directly to master, and we don't want that. So I'm looking at other CMS systems to see if we can have some that actually creates PRs and we can do proper reviews and everything. But other than that, some of them have drafts, so you can have collaboration. People can work on drafts together, which might help if you're working on documentation together. And they're not committed to master until you actually publish them. So it might be a way for more collaborative docs writing, but it might also not be a good idea for this. But if you want, I can dive into it a little more in the next week or so and see if I can find something that would help. The nice thing about this is that you actually get a proper graphical view. It's a little easier to write. I know you're all very familiar with Markdown, but not everyone is. So yeah, it's just an idea.
Does it use, sorry about the cat. Does it use Markdown
Yeah.
inside of it?
Yeah, it's depending on the type of content you have, you set what type of content it is you're writing. So yeah, Markdown by default, of course, for the body of the document, and then it adds in a bunch of things in the front matter, as it's called, like the title. You can have dates and things like that in there automatically. So it can be a little easier, but I want to make sure it doesn't disrupt your existing workflow in any way.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion at the moment. I know that with static site generators, there's folks looking for something like this, similar to the GitHub web editor, that you would edit stuff and then make a git commit and shove it in so that you have more of a CMS-y type of experience, but with static files getting generated. So I'm, if you can tell me more and we can get some experiments, that would be cool.
Yeah, if you want to, I can do a little demo of this next week. See if it would be fitting at all. So I'll pump that to next week and do a little demo then. So a bunch of UX and UI stuff for next week. All right, cool. So we're into the contributor shoutouts. Steve, you want to take these?
Yeah, the first one actually, Carlicia, I was wondering if you wanted to jump in here for C. Panato, Carlos, who's been helping us out with the Helm stuff. I know you've been working with him.
Yeah, so Carlos, he's not on the call, but he was so helpful. He basically laid out all of the steps that needed to be done to migrate the Helm of Velero Helm charts from the Helm GitHub repo to our own repo. and he did all of it as well. I basically just opened tickets for him, and he was interested in being a maintainer, so it was so logical. You know, whenever someone jumps in and starts doing work, it's just very natural to make them a maintainer. And we are looking to make more people maintainers of our repos. So that was a very great contributions that he made. And
Awesome.
also for people who don't know, he's part of the Helm organization, so he's very familiar with Helm. He definitely brings knowledge in that department.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a big help for us. And then two more that I had, and I'm realizing I've only been looking at the main Velero repo, so we may need to upscope where we look for these contributor shoutouts. But the second one, Hao Shui, who submitted a PR to add an Alibaba credentials environment variable to the default Velero installation. So this kind of brings Alibaba support in line with the other big three providers that we have. So definitely appreciate that, and that'll help out for users on that platform. We do have some kind of longer term desires to get this provider specific stuff out of core Velero. We obviously did a big push with the plugin extraction to do that, but some of the environment variables we still don't have a great solution for, so we'll be revisiting that in the future. But for now, this is a good change for us. And then we also had a bug fix come in from Genting to fix an issue with the format of a log statement. I think we just have the wrong print verb in there. So thanks for that bug fix. Cleans up our logs. And that was everything I had. I apologize if I missed anything from one of the other repos, but I think it was pretty quiet over the holidays.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments, discussion topics? All right, then we're going to close it out for today. Thank you all for attending and joining in the discussions. Thank you all for contributing to Velero, and we'll see you next week. Have a fantastic week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.